Hello, I'm Irma Baker. Welcome to our show. We have one of our favorite guests today, and boy, does he have interesting things to talk about. Mark Ludwig,
Hi.
So great to have you back with us.
Thanks for inviting me back. I appreciate it.
Well, I think that what the Medina Parks District is doing here in our area, providing all these wonderful opportunities for us to get really closer to nature. Though I have to tell you, I'm not so sure I want to get close to the kind of woodland life that you're going to talk about today. But you're a naturalist with the Parks District. And how long have you been doing that?
Probably over 20 years. I've been with the Medina County Park District for over 13, but I started at the National Park 96, 97, something like that. And worked at Summit Metro Parks for about 10 years. And now here, it's in Medina County. So it's been wonderful. It's a blessing, no question about it.
Well, I know every time you come, you're so excited and enthusiastic about what's going on here with the Parks District that it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. But when I got the information ahead of time for today's show, I kind of thought that it was like a takeoff on the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Thinking, oh my gosh, it's cougars and bison and wolves, oh my.
Yeah.
But we're talking about wildlife in our area, and of course they come into our Parks District, but they're not all, well, some of them we're never going to see.
Yeah, and this is early on. This is what kind of like the pioneers saw when they came in, early 1800s, and this is kind of what wildlife was around Ohio. So, which is different than what is here today. So for the most part, so we'll go through some of the slides that I brought today, and kind of the title of this program is "Where Did They Go?"
Where did they go?
So animals that are extirpated is the word. That are gone from the area, that have never come back to, like Ohio, for example. Wolves we'll talk about. So some of these animals were gone, but then they returned, and we'll kind of talk about that today. And as we go through the slides, we'll kind of ask the audience which of the following animals are now back in Ohio. So, we'll start with the first one. And so these animals are around in Medina County in Ohio. And they were actually never here when the first pioneers came here in Ohio. So the first time they actually came into Ohio was around 1919. And
really?
So they were never here originally, early on.
I had no idea that they weren't native to our area.
Yep. So they originally the population that was here was out west, and they just expanded their range up into Canada, up down into Mexico. Further east, so it's just they're everywhere now. Every county, pretty sure every state. so they are, and I think I brought some of the skulls and what we call pelts or furs of some of the animals. So this is a coyote skull. Coyotes are around. They a lot of people mistake them sometimes for dogs, but some of the ways you can tell is that when they run with the tail kind of below, whereas a dog is tails up as they're running. Some of the tracks you can see along the way, coyote tracks are usually straight as an arrow because they have a destination in mind, or whereas a dog tracks are like zigzag because they're sniffing everything as they go. But they're animals that you usually don't see, even though they're around. They're very elusive. They are animals that are more afraid of us than we are of them, like many of these animals we're going to talk about. So which is interesting, they actually even have a study in Chicago where they have millions of people living in the city and thousands of coyotes that are living among people. So,
well, I know that I have coyotes that come through my yard.
Yep.
And they seem to have come into our area kind of following the deer.
Yeah, they generally hunt smaller animals, so anything from what we call voles to mice to rabbits. They apparently eat a lot of eggs as well. So, but generally small animals, and they a lot of times you don't see them, but you hear them. So a lot of times they like to mimic different sounds that they hear, like train whistles to police sirens. They like to copy that or mimic it. And we'll talk about the wolves in a little bit, but they have their own communication. So they have anything from a howl to a bark to yipping sound, like almost sounds like puppies when they're like in a playful mood. So a pretty amazing animal, pretty clever animal. So they do pretty well with surviving around people because they kind of are very elusive, meaning that you hardly ever see them, even though they're around.
Well, I have to ask you something about coyotes. Can a coyote climb a tree?
I haven't read that before, that they can, but they. A lot of people do have the fear that sometimes they may go after their pets, and that is true. And from what my understanding is, it's generally during the wintertime, like a small dog, they may, because coyotes get really territorial, especially in the wintertime, and if a dog crosses into their territory, sometimes they may attack it. So it's pretty rare for it to happen, but sometimes it does happen.
Well, what else have you brought us?
So next slide is the bobcat, and these animals were actually, and this date is a date that I'll say a lot. So which is 1850. A lot of these animals were gone from the state, and they're thinking maybe in the 1960s that they started to come back into Ohio. Today, a larger population is down south in southern Ohio, and they and actually, Medina County, the first verified sighting was 2014. There was a trap that somebody was trapping, I think the story is beavers, and accidentally a bobcat got trapped in it, and I think it was around Lodi somewhere. But
do we have any idea why the bobcat disappeared so early? I mean,
so
1850.
a lot of this is habitat loss. And the fact that people moving in, the pioneers moving in, a lot of their animals that they fed on were gone. So sometimes they turn to livestock, which obviously causes a problem. So yeah, habitat loss and then people moving in. They really weren't coexisting too well.
Well, if they were going after livestock,
Right.
were the farmers then just killing them off?
Sure, absolutely, yeah, because it was either them. I mean, the theory back then was either us or them, so kind of thing. And so yeah, they had to in order to survive. The bobcat is actually about 4 times bigger than a house cat, and they can get up to anywhere from 12 to 68 pounds, which is pretty amazing. And they get the name bobcat because of the bobtail, the short tail on the back. And they are pretty fierce fighters, incredible hunters. They actually stalk and kind of ambush their prey. So they sneak out and pounce on it or jump on it, and so it's kind of an interesting animal. And most of their diet is meat, so they are generally meat eaters.
So they act a lot like a cat,
Like the
only
cat,
a lot more
but bigger.
dangerous and maybe vicious.
But yeah, and once again, just they do well, just because they leave us alone. They do have a natural fear of people. So, and they're, like I said, the population is greater in southern Ohio, but as time goes on, I'm sure the population will increase. The next animal we have is what is called the snowshoe hare, and I don't have any pelts or skulls or anything of this animal, but early on in the 1900s they were gone from the state. They were actually reintroduced in 1999 up near in northeast Ohio. The problem is they, from one of the several people talking to, is that when they released them, they are basically generally brown during the summer, and then in the winter they change to white. So what the theory is that because of our winters are really doesn't seem like to be winters anymore, maybe different this year, is that they were really standing out because they were white and there was no snow on the ground, so so they were an easy target for predators. That was one of the theories of why they really weren't doing well. So they are not reintroducing them anymore. So it didn't really take off.
Were they a food source for pioneers?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure they were. Yeah. Our next animal that we have is the wild turkey.
Ah.
Speaking of food source. So these animals, believe it or not, were gone in 1909 from the state, and then they were reintroduced in 1956. So today they're everywhere. So much like we'll talk about deer back at our Wolf Creek Environmental Center right down the street from here. I think I counted like 40 turkeys that we had a couple of weeks ago. And we usually have about 5 or 6 male tom turkeys that hang around the building. They'll eat our bird seed and our feeders. And but just a beautiful bird. They puff up, the males puff up during the springtime to try to attract a mate, and the gobbling sound.
Now, are any of these feathers,
those are all turkey feathers.
They're all turkey
they
feathers.
look all different, but they're all from the same bird. The coolest one is this feather right here, which actually has a really beautiful copper color. It's like an iridescent copper. I don't know if you can zoom or see that in the lighting, but and it's just all to attract the female turkey. So they also it's kind of funny because like the window glass that's outside our visitor center, they see as a mirror and they think it's another turkey, so they're constantly banging their beak into the glass, thinking it's another turkey, and it's pretty.
That's what the cardinals like to do.
Yeah, cardinals
too.
and other birds will do that as well, thinking it's another male in their territory. So.
I remember you telling us on another show that the best way to keep birds from flying into your windows or thinking it's another bird is just have dirty windows.
Just leave them dirty. Yeah. Don't ever clean them. And it actually it breaks up the reflection. So, but we also put like silhouettes of maybe different birds in the windows, and that kind of helps. Sometimes, like if a hawk is chasing a smaller bird, the bird will panic and still fly into the window. So that sometimes doesn't work when like a hawk is chasing a bird. So. Our next animal that we're going to talk about is the black bear. So this is a animal that was actually gone from the state in 1850. One of the things I didn't mention is that, and I always have to write the state down because I forget, is that there was a great, what they call the Hinckley Hunt of 1818, and this was on December 24th, day before Christmas. It was 500 men, and they actually killed 21 bear, and this is Medina County in Hinckley, 17 wolves, 300 deer, and it said an untold numbers of turkeys, foxes, and raccoons. So yeah, it was just once again the us or them kind of philosophy, like they had to survive, and so a lot of these animals were killed off.
Well, the deer and the turkeys, were they food stuff for them?
The deer, yeah, absolutely, yeah, for the bear, and actually the bear is kind of interesting. We'll go back to that slide. They're actually, most of their diet is plant material. So they generally, like 25%, and I even read even less sometimes, is animal material. So most of their diet is plants, but they will feed on carrion, dead animals, small mammals, and yes, I'm sure sometimes deer maybe that have died. But yeah, they generally plant eaters, which is kind of funny to think about. And they, once again, in the East, they do have a natural fear of people. So usually when people see them, they say, I ran one way and the bear ran the other. So even places that have a bigger bear population, it's kind of funny that a lot of people don't even see them, So they are definitely shy, and they do fear humans. And the theory on that is that as time went on, the more aggressive bears were killed off, and then the less aggressive ones passed on the genes to the next generation, and so that's one of the reasons. So, but never feed wild animals, especially bear, because a lot of times if wild animals lose their fear of people, and this goes with any animals, coyotes and animals like that, once they lose their fear of people, then it becomes more dangerous. So yeah, never feed wild animals.
And never get between mama bear and her cubs.
Yeah. But yeah, 1850 they were gone, but now they are starting to reappear in Ohio. We generally say about 100 in Ohio, but Pennsylvania has a population of, I think it's up to maybe 16,000, 17,000 bear now, so it's huge. So a lot of these bears are coming over to Ohio. There was one 2018, or actually when you see this video 2 years ago, in June they came through, it started in Jug County, and I guess it went into down to Holmes County, Amish country, and then up to Wadsworth, where we're at, and then actually went towards Akron, and then wound up getting hit by a car on Interstate 77. And this bear was, they originally said it was supposed to be like 400 pounds, but then I reread it and they said maybe half that size, maybe 200 pounds or so. But usually the males can travel over 100 miles in search of new territory, in search of food. And so this bear, it's just amazing how they tracked it, and then they did confirm that it was tagged from Pennsylvania. So. And they usually show up, believe it or not, people's bird feeders. They love to eat bird seed, so people are up in the morning watching their birds, and then their cup of coffee, and then instead of seeing birds, they see bear attached to the feeder. So yeah, pretty amazing.
I think it was last winter or the winter before that there was a bear that was feeding on the bird feeders in Brecksville.
Yeah, they like the bird seed, and generally when they're traveling, it's in summer, I should say. During the winter time, they are. It's not a true hibernation because they don't really drop their body temperature, but it's more of a winter sleep. But it's kind of debatable. But they don't drop their body temperature like groundhogs do. So their temperature remains about the same. But the amazing thing is they 7.5 months, I wrote down here, they can go without eating, drinking, defecating, and it's amazing. They're just very well insulated. I've seen pictures or video of snow covering the bear, and the snow is not even melting, because they're not really giving off a lot of heat. So it's a really amazing animal. We'll move on to the next slide before we run out of time. Mountain lion, some of these I'm going to go through a lot quicker, but 1839 they were gone from the state forever, they believed, but they certainly could have been in Medina County, and they are a much bigger animal. Most of the population right now is out west, where the last I read it was quite a big population. About 30,000, believe it or not, in the United States, and they said it estimated about 5,000 in California. The closest one, the wild mountain lion or cougar, they actually have many different names, but they reported one in Chicago many years ago that actually wandered into the city. It followed the river up, and it was about a block from where my sister lived at the time. So she never saw it or anything, but unfortunately the animal was killed, for fear of, attacking, somebody. So,
it was not a place you want to find a mountain lion.
No. So, but it just wandered up along the river, and they found that it was from the wild population. Now, in the past, some people did have mountain lions, cougars as pets, and they would escape. Read about that probably, and. But the closest wild population was, like I said, Chicago, the mountain lion or cougar that they found. We're moving on to our river otter. So that was 1954. It was gone from the state, and then they were reintroduced in 1986. I've never seen one in the wild before, but they're in Medina County, so I don't think the population is huge. But I've talked to people that have seen them, and so they're Chippewa Lake Inlet, I think one time, Black River further west, and then 162 and near Medina Line Road. There was wetlands that they were seen there as well.
You brought a pelt along,
and
didn't
then
you?
the pelt is really amazing. I do have a picture we took beforehand, but I can hold it up. So it's really amazing just how soft the fur
It
is.
is.
And,
I didn't think they were so big.
Yep, pretty big animal. Very, very playful too. The times I've seen them, of course, with probably everybody else is in the zoo. You see them, and they're constantly. It's kind of funny because I think a lot of times they see people. It's like, oh, I'm gonna show off for these people. So it's they're going down a slide and doing flips in the water, and but in nature they're very playful as well. So they're kind of doing the same thing. They eat a lot of fish primarily, but yeah, hope to see one day. Elk is another animal that used to be in Ohio but gone. So 1839 was the last that they believed in Ohio. You can see them today in Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, called Elk Country, and they have a really nice visitor center there. I was able to go with my family a couple years ago and saw hundreds of them, the females and the young. I've never seen a male, but the males actually have a really cool bugling sound. See if I can play it. There it goes. Yep. But really, really loud bugling sound, like a territory sound or call. Moving on to our next slide, the gray wolf. Used to be in Ohio as well, so 1850 they were gone from the state. We do have a creek in Medina County, and our nature center is named after that creek, which is Wolf Creek. And it was basically the pioneers saw the wolves down near this creek and named it after them. So they were around the area. They're much bigger than a coyote. I wrote down in my notes that the males can be over 100 pounds, sometimes even 145 pounds, I've read at the extreme. The females are generally smaller, but the territory size is really amazing. It can be anywhere from 50 to 1,000 square miles, which is pretty amazing.
For one wolf?
For the wolves, yeah. So they are pack animals, and in a pack there can be anywhere from 10 to 37 wolves in the pack. And so, so the reason for the territory size, it really depends on the prey that they're feeding on. Usually it's larger mammals, deer, for example. And if they're moving around, the wolves are moving around with it. So as a pack animal, they work together to take down the bigger animal. So that was one of the theories of why they are in these bigger packs.
And what we're looking at right now, those
so
are wolf
that's the wolf
skulls?
skull, and which is the bigger one, and then the smaller one is the coyote. So you can see that the difference in size. So wolf being much bigger animal. Coyotes are generally not considered, at least in the East, pack animals. They are considered to be in family groups. I mean, they stay within the family, but they usually hunt alone, whereas wolves are working together. And we can talk the rest of the time about wolves, but we're running out of time. But they are pretty amazing animals, so they all work together in this community. The beaver is one that was gone 1830 and then returned to the state in 1936. They really have a really cool skull. They have iron in their teeth that helps them with cutting down trees. And they're scraping the bark off the tree with their teeth and feeding on the bark. But they were gone for over 100 years or something like that. And the worth of the beaver fur was is just as valuable as gold, I guess, back then. So it was very very important. They not only used it for clothes, but but hats. The very popular beaver felt hats in Europe, so they were hunted or trapped extensively. The coolest thing about the beaver is the tail. They have a big flat leathery tail that they use to slap the top of the water to communicate. It also helps them swim. They use their front feet actually to pat down mud on their lodge or their beaver dam. The next animal, I forget how many we have left, bison. So 1800s they were gone early from the state, but they were believed to be in Medina County. Eagle never left, but in 1979, because of several things, including habitat loss and the DDT pesticides, there was only about 4 pair left. This is recent, 2019. They estimate around 440. And this is an eagle egg replica, so it's pretty small for the size. We do have them nesting in our Medina County in our parks, Medina Marsh, and then Chippewa near Chippewa Lake, which is really cool. Deer. I'm not going to talk much about them because we're almost out of time, but they were gone from the state and then reintroduced along with the Massasauga. They were gone from Medina County, and then smaller populations in 2014. Here's a rattle of a rattlesnake.
Oh, is that what that is?
And then lastly, the goose, gone from the state and then reintroduced in 1956.
And I think some people are not too happy about the Canada goose being back in the area. Well, Mark, it's been wonderful having you with us again, and this has been fascinating.
Yeah.
We'll look forward to having you back, and we hope that you will join us again. So for everyone here at WCTV on RSVP, have a wonderful day.